You need to tailor your message to the audience. You need to tailor your document to the audience. This is one of these common expressions, things that many people believe to be true. Though based on my humble experience working together with both individuals but also in corporate trainings with organizations, very few people actually understand what this really means. How do you tailor your messages, your documents to the audience? How this really works. And let's talk about that in today's video. So welcome to another coffee break. My name is Heinrich. I'm a former McKinsey consultant, later transitioned into C-level roles in industry and tech. And as the basis for this video, I want to introduce you to a basic framework. And this is a framework that arguably all people go through who you want to convince about your ideas, your suggestions, your proposals, right? Which is arguably what many of these types of professional interactions are all about. And so the very first step typically that people are in is ignorance. So you're preparing a presentation, you're discussing an idea in a meeting, and this person has never heard about that. This person is not even aware that this is a problem, that this is a challenge, that this is a topic in their organization. This is the very first step. Then you start discussing it, and then people enter the next stage, or maybe also before you raised it. Due to other interactions this person was part of, the person is suddenly aware of the topic. The person knows that there's an issue, a challenge, a problem, that this is a topic that is relevant to the organization. Next, understanding. This is now the stage where the person actually understands the arguments in favor or against a certain topic, understands the points that you are making with regard to the topic that you are discussing. Understanding. And then next, buy-in. That person believes that your proposal, your suggestion, your point of view on the topic is true, is the right one. The person buys into it. And then last but not least, decision, especially if you're talking to senior executives, this person now makes the decision to follow your recommendation, follow your proposal. The budget is approved for it, resources are allocated, and whatever you're suggesting here, this is now happening. And arguably in some shapes and forms, in some variations, of course, this is the process people go through when being confronted with a new idea that you might be raising. So let's now discuss the implications of this framework for your communication, for your documents. And the first question you want to answer for yourself before you walk into any type of meeting interaction, conversation interaction with another person is, where are people or the person you're talking to, where are they on this continuum? What is their current position on this continuum? Because this very much informs indeed how you approach the topic, how you communicate. And in other videos we already discussed several structures, how you could approach this. One prominent structure we discussed is the idea of top-down communication, where very early in such a pyramid way you are sharing your recommendation, your proposal on a certain topic, and then back it up with all the arguments, with all the evidence for that. Of course, this approach works very well. It's likely the go-to approach, especially if people are at least in step 2, if not in step 3 of this deliberation process. So they need to have some context on the topic already. If this is not the case, it's very difficult for people to understand why you're starting your communication early on with something like, we need to do this, this is what you propose, if the context of this is not even clear. And if that's the case, you might want to work with more storytelling style frameworks, which fall into some narrative structures, which we also discussed in some other videos, such as situation, complication, solution, which then can form as an introduction, then a transition into the top-down structure. I will link some videos here above where you can inform yourself about these principles if they are not yet familiar. So first implications, you need to ask yourself, where are people on this continuum? And this now leads me to an important second implication of this framework. Because here the first point already begs the second point that some of you maybe are already starting to think about, and this is whether actually in such a often more complex meeting situation, whether all people, all participants are on the same step of this continuum or not. And of course, in practice, often the answer is no, this is not the case. You might walk into a meeting where there are people in there that are already far advanced here, who understand the issue very well, maybe already also formed an opinion, what they consider to be true, maybe are ready to already make a decision on that. But then there are other people in the room, and often these might then even be the more senior decision makers, who their perspective really matters, who might be here still on step number 1 or step number 2. And this very often creates issues, creates friction and conflict in the meeting room because people feel overwhelmed if they are here at the first steps of the continuum, but then other people are already pushing for decision with maybe also far-reaching implications on a topic that they don't even properly understand yet. And then often there is pushback against that. People will then default to being against it, which is of course not in your interest. And here also based on my humble experience in a consulting firm like McKinsey, in consulting it would be considered a very significant process mistake of the project lead to just walk in a meeting like this with people being confronted with such a topic for the first time, especially if these are senior people. You will always want to make sure that in such a situation you are aligning the knowledge levels, at least to some extent, to the extent that's possible for your participants, already also beforehand, before you are then discussing this in the meeting. And typically then what you can do in practice is that you schedule these famous alignment meetings, right? You approach these people, also if they're very senior, you hit them up and you tell them, hey, framing is I want to make the best use of your time in our upcoming meeting. Would you have 20 minutes where I can walk you through our perspective, our view on the topic, collect your perspective, and so on. And often actually these people appreciate it. They also do not like to be surprised with such a new topic in such a meeting, especially in front of other senior peers of them. They appreciate it. They have the opportunity to already think about this, process this, understand this beforehand. And of course for you this also has the advantage that then you directly already understand their perspective. And this might be a very valid perspective, maybe reasons, arguments, considerations that are relevant for you as well. And if at all, you might then already know in advance that this person maybe also might be an opponent of the idea of your proposal, which is of course good intel to have, and then on your side also not just to be surprised by that. Tailoring the message to the audience in an effective way is of course very important. But what's important as well is to create professional, clean documents that meet highest professional standards. And often in this professional environment, we are working with slides. We are creating slide presentations. And so I put together for you a slide checklist based on an actual checklist I used while I worked at McKinsey that will help you to create professional slide documents and to help you avoid common mistakes that many people are doing when putting together their slides. And so if you are interested in this checklist to create professional, cleaner slides, I will offer it to you as a free download. There's a link to that in the video description. Hope this helps you as much as for sure it helped me during my time in consulting. And this then leads to a third very important implication that many people completely underestimate that now I want to discuss here with you. And this additional implication is the question how far you can actually realistically advance on this continuum in one meeting. And some people out there make the following mistake. They sit together with a person where they ideally are even already aware that this person hears about this more or less for the first time or only has a very high level understanding of what this is even all about. And then they try within one meeting to push this person to make a decision on this topic. And my humble experience on this is that even if you are preparing a perfect document, you are preparing the perfect fact base, you have all information with you that would be required to fully understand the topic at hand and to make a well-informed decision, people are very reluctant to decide on these topics if they have a starting point that is rather here early in the process. For the reason being that there are only very few people out there who have, let's say, mental flexibility within one interaction to absorb all the information, process it, come up with their own conclusion, make up their mind, and then are also directly willing to make a far-reaching decision with potentially budget implications and so on. People are just not comfortable with that, at least on average, at least most people. And so the basic rule of thumb I want to share here with you is that you should aim to not advance more than 2 steps on the continuum. So what this means is that if a person is here in the ignorant step, the maximum advancement that you should aim for in a meeting is understanding, right? So if a person never heard about a topic before and you are able within one meeting to help the person fully understand the topic, this is already great progress and you should not aim for more because otherwise you will overwhelm the person, which again might create reluctance, might create a negative sentiment toward the topic they're discussing. If the person has a high level understanding of what you're discussing, you might succeed to, in a meeting, create buy-in, that the person now forms a positive view on what you're trying to share with the person. And only if that person already fully understands the topic, only then should you push for an actual decision on that. And sometimes even that might be a bit too far-fetched, and you still might want to go only step by step, only one step instead of two. But as a rule of thumb, at least don't push for more than 2 steps at once. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? Do you think that this will help you to further tailor your message to the audience? Any other insights you can share with the Firm Learning audience? Super interested to read about this as well. Leave a like, please, if you took any value out of this video at all. And please subscribe to stay up to date on all the content. Big thanks to all the channel members. My name is Heinrich. Looking forward to the next week.